Welcome to Adapt It, the podcast where we explore adaptations of various forms. I'm today's host, Tom, and with me is...
Pat?
We are to our first winner, and this is Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson, who's 1832 to 1910. And he was launched into fame in the 1850s after working as a Swedish journalist for a while. He had a play in 1850.
Swedish or Norwegian? Isn't he Norwegian?
Me, Norwegian, my bad.
Yeah.
Yep. Norwegian, yeah.
Sorry, I was like, oh, good for him. He's Sweden too. Sorry,
No. It's actually really important he's Norwegian for his history, so that is a big mistake to make.
Well, I would just like to admit the mistake I made last week, by the way, because I did at the end of our episode when I said, I haven't seen it in a long time. I thought Rebel Without a Cause was directed by Elia Kazan, but it was pointed out to me that it is not directed by Elia Kazan. It is by, what was it, Nicholas Ray?
Nicholas Ray, yes. Nicholas Ray, the man whose son married his ex-wife.
That's awkward.
That is a very awkward family reunion. But regardless of weird marriages, Bjørnson, I don't think, had any weird marriages. He seemed to have a normal marriage with his wife.
I know nothing about the man.
He's... Okay, so he comes into his fame with a few things in the late 1850s. He has a play called Between the Battles, becomes the major stage director of the Norwegian theater in Bergen. He was very politically active, and also in the late 1850s, he publishes a bunch of these peasant novels, one of which we read. Actually, two of which we read. I
think we are two of the only Americans to have ever read two of Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson's novels.
Yeah, he's done a few of them.
You mean he's done one of them a few times, right?
He's done one, yeah. I trailed off because I dropped my notes.
No,
but anyway.
But I'm just joking. Considering the fact that we read two of them, I'm going to guess that he wrote the same novel a few times.
About based 5 times.
Yeah, he seems to have a theme and a little bit repetitive.
Kind of. There's different errors to
different things
to his careers. Yeah. So it's the peasant trilogy, Synovi, Solbakken, which we read, Arne, and A Happy Boy. And there was 2 other ones as well that came out a little later. But he had these peasant books. He also had these plays which were kind of tied into the Norse past, sort of much more kind of grand spectacle plays they were very different. Between the Battles is one of them. And he was pretty competitive with Ibsen, Heinrich Ibsen, the more famous playwright. That play came out about a year after Ibsen's first stage play, The Feast at Solhung. So their careers parallel each other in interesting ways. Actually, Ibsen's child married his child, so their families paralleled each other. He became famous a lot faster than Ibsen. Ibsen had a lot of failures early on. But Bjørnson was very active left-leaning in politics. And what that meant at the time in the 1860s and 1870s was separation from Sweden. As Sweden and Norway are part of the same country at this time, they would be until 1905. And he was in 1870 charged with treason, and then he fled to Germany and remained there until the 1880s. At this time, his career changes. He moves away from either peasant novels or these sort of Norse epics into social commentary plays, such as The Bankrupt and The Editor. He was, and those plays started taking on that characteristic. He came back to his home in the 1880s. He was incredibly famous. He was a very big polemicist. He ended up working with Edvard Grieg for a few things, who put a lot of his poetry to music. He was working with Grieg on an opera, but Grieg decided instead to work with Ibsen on Peer Gynt, so there's another parallel between Ibsen and Bjørnson. His whole life believed in a free Norway, which does happen a few years after he wins the prize. And he even mentions that he won the prize, the Nobel Prize, as a gift from, quote, one nation to another, which seems like a little dig since they were the same nation at that time. Actually, though, his award may have more to do with the fact that he sat on the Norwegian Nobel Prize for Peace Committee and was responsible for awarding the Nobel Prize in Peace. So that committee which was established by the Norwegian Parliament. So he was truly an insider who won this award. We don't really read Bjornson today.
No kidding. No.
Yeah, I
Um, if any audience member has read Bjornstjerne of Bjornson, kudos, kudos.
Well, probably they have, because Bjornson's lyrics are the lyrics to the Norwegian national anthem. So that's
Oh, interesting.
probably
Okay.
his enduring effort.
I mean, it's why everyone knows Francis Scott Key, so
Yeah, oh, probably. Yeah,
I mean, no one would know Francis Scott Key otherwise. So
yeah, it would just be a
other than F. Scott
relative of F.
Fitzgerald,
Scott
yeah,
Fitzgerald. Yeah.
exactly.
But that's Bjornson's legacy. He dies soon after in 1910.
Does he get to see an independent Norway?
He gets to see an independent Norway, and
All right.
interestingly enough, he's not happy about it. And he writes to
Oh, what an old crab!
yeah.
You
So
finally got what you want. Stop
he
whining.
writes a letter to the
Not
the
independent enough.
yeah, well,
Kids
he
are on my
says,
lawn.
but he writes a letter to like the head of parliament, of the Norwegian parliament. He says, "This is a time for unity." And the apparently the head of parliament wrote back to him and said, "This is a time to shut up."
Yeah,
And
it's
that
like
ended it.
shut up, bro.
Yeah.
I
Um,
would I would sympathize with that prime minister or whatever he was.
yeah, yeah. So, looking at this and having read his speech and also reading Off Versen, who is the head of the Literature Prize Committee, who does a sort of banquet speech awarding the prize, there's a lot of talk already about the kind of crystal clear, beautiful ideals he has. There's also a long description of where Bjornson grew up, which he only grew up for a few years as having beautiful rivers and wonderful land, and then he moved to another place that also had a beautiful land. I actually looked into it, and apparently the area where he grew up in his first 5 years might have been beautiful, but it was really rough, and his father, a pastor, had to go to church with weapons to protect himself. So you get these descriptions of how beautiful the land was of Norway where he grew up, and it's like you read the history and like, it may have been beautiful, but I don't think it was a nice time for the Bjornson family. That seems to be a little bit of what's going on. If you read any of his poetry is like, there's one of them I read where he talks about being a
You read
little
a lot more
boy.
than I did. I only read those two novels, and I kind of struggled to get
Stopped.
through.
Yeah,
I mean, I read them, but I was not gonna read more. But
more. Yeah. No, and that's but this poem was like, I went outside and it was a nice day and I ran around and my mother said, "Come in." And I said, "Oh," but then I ran around some more and what a beautiful day. And then I came inside. And that's really the poem. That's the content of the poem. And I was thinking there must be some kind of irony or dark thing I'm expecting, but no,
no,
it is pure and clear, and the land is wonderful, and the peasants are wonderful, and isn't life such a great trip? So moral. That's the thing. That's the thing also Offerson mentions in his banquet speech awarding this, is that there's clear morals in Bjornson. Um,
there sure are.
there
Yeah.
sure are a lot of clear morals in Bjornson. Um,
It reminds me of. I mean, well, we'll get there. Well, we can
yeah,
finish with our story of.
of yeah, where he came from and all that. Um, he was interestingly enough, he only got two nominations that year. There were 26 people nominated. A person who really hated him, a prominent literary critic, George Braun, got 19, and then Carl Friedrich Glasnap, who I don't know anything about, got 15 nominations. Frederick Mistral, who would win next year, got four. Bjornson only got two, though, and still managed to win this award. And it seems,
Was this the like? I think doesn't the book that we were reading? I can't remember the name of the author. It kind of suggested that he wins it in place of Ibsen. Isn't that kind of the
yes, yeah.
potentially
The
what's going
the
on here?
argument, because he quotes from Malfearson, who awards it and basically says Ibsen's immoral and sexual, and that's a problem. which
and
comes,
interesting and compelling
yeah,
and
all those things we hate. Yeah.
yeah,
Which comes up again in the banquet speech because he talks about the wonderful morals of Bjornson. Right? There's very clear good and bad, and there isn't a dour spirit. That's another thing he talks about. There's not a down at the end of any of his works. Apparently, I mean, I haven't read them all, but even in The Bankrupt, which is a play that could potentially be interesting, it ends on a unrealistic Deus Ex Machina kind of note. It's not even a Deus Ex Machina. You just learn things are okay now. You don't even know why. They're just we manage things well and we're okay. No longer bankrupt. All good. So I think getting into this and talking about Bjornson, that seems to be my kind of read on who he was, what his body of work was, and potentially why that was attractive to
yeah.
that committee. But let's get into this particular work.
So we read, at least I read two, because
Hmm.
originally we were going to do like, what is it, Unglad Gut,
Hmm. Yep,
the happy boy.
the happy boy.
Worst name for a book ever.
Mm.
Maybe it works better in Norwegian, but the happy boy is a terrible name for a book. Um, but so we read that one because we were going to watch that movie, and then
It
the
disappeared.
it disappeared from the streaming service offered by a large search engine. I don't know if we could say their names though. Let them sue. Not that
Mhm.
they care, but
Mhm.
they pulled it, so we couldn't watch that
And
movie.
and we
So
tried all
then,
other legal methods, quote unquote legal methods,
yeah,
and
we tried many other methods, but surprise, surprise, Unglad Gut is not available on many services, even
mm.
illegally. So you can't even steal the thing. So we had to go with a different Bjornstjerne and Bjornson novel, which I had to read like a really bad version on my iPhone, which I can't stand reading on my phone. And I don't even what is the name of it?
The name is Synnøve Solbakken.
Yeah, Sonove Solbakken. So I
Sometimes
couldn't
it's
even.
called the Fairy of Solbakken or the Maid of Solbakken. I don't think Synnøve translates to that. It's just what
It's
people
probably just
call
her
it.
name, I
Mm.
assume.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got a copy on like Project Gutenberg on my phone, and that was what I think that's what I read. But good Lord.
We should probably give them being our audience, you dear listeners, a little bit of a plot summary of what this book is about. It shouldn't take too long. It's the hills of Norway, their neighbors, Thorbjorn and Synnøve. Thorbjorn's the man.
But the hills aren't alive with the sound of music. They're loud with the sounds of fisticuffs.
Yes,
Yeah.
because Thorbjorn is a fighting man, and he keeps getting into trouble, even though he tries to be good, but he's always fighting with people. And Synnøve, her mother Karen, is a real Karen and doesn't let him anywhere near her daughter because he's such a brawler. And so they start to fall in
This is
love,
so
but
bad.
he wants to change his ways, and he's trying really hard. But then a old laborer interrupts him, and then he has to go down to the valley, and he gets into a fight with another potential love interest of Synnøve and gets stabbed, and then he realizes, I'll never change my ways, and he writes a letter to Synnøve and says, go on your own. I let you off the hook, or whatever the hell he writes. And he recovers and he gets better, and then he realizes he's at peace and they can get married, and the parents agree to that.
Well, they agree because when he goes to the church one day, he meets the man who stabs him and he shakes his hands and they're pleasant towards one another and now he's marriage material.
Yep, exactly.
Uh
I don't know
yeah,
why
that's
why the man who stabbed him. I don't guess there's no legal system here,
that's what
or
I mean, I was actually wondering that. There seems to be no legal system. There seems to be some legal system though. This is again, this is just my lack of knowledge of Norwegian history. It's minimal pre 1940. But the laborer which is by far the best character in the book, by the way. His name is Aslak. Is that his name?
yes, yeah.
Um, and he
I
it
think it was Affleck. I kept remembering
yeah.
Affleck. I'm like, oh God, this guy. Anyway, go ahead.
My old client.
Hmm.
But the Aslak is a laborer on the farm that
Thornbjorn.
Bjorn, okay,
Thorbjorn. Like Thor,
Thor,
like with the hammer. Thorbjorn.
Thorbjorn. We're gonna get so many names wrong here. Thorbjorn, that Aslak works on their family farm. And the whole thing is that's actually one of the more interesting parts of the book is Aslak is basically like clearly they're supposed to be like a slightly older boy. He's supposed to be like 9 or 10, I think, and Thorbjorn is supposed to be like 7 or 8. And so clearly, it's like a little kid, and he looks up to the older one, and the older one's kind of rough and tumble and tells him all these, swear words and stories about fairies. And, it's like, the implication being he's corrupting the youth. So the very moral. But uh I was where was I going with this? The Aslak character is one of the more interesting ones, but what was I gonna say?
His history? What we learn about him?
Oh, well, no, I guess there was something I was going to say about it.
Oh.
I can't remember now because this
Mm.
this novel is somewhat forgettable. But the Aslan character is one of the more
Mhm.
interesting characters, I guess is where I was going. He certainly he's got an inch he tells a whole story about how he burned a house down and murdered someone, and
Mm.
there's to save his mother's honor because his mother was being insulted. There's like that character is really interesting. There's a lot going on with him, but you just kind of lose him. So I guess he doesn't get a happy ending. But that's one of the more interesting things in the book, really.
Yes, he is sort of corrupting the youth, as you say. And there's an episode where he gets Thorbjorn to throw snowballs at his sister, which apparently is just the end of the world, because then the father beats the hell out of
Well, I thought
Aslak.
he
And
beat him because he was throwing the snowballs at the glass. That was more of the problem, wasn't
oh,
it?
yeah, he threw it at the glass. He threw
Because
it at the
he broke
sister.
a window, which I
Yeah,
mean, I think windows are
are probably
absurdly
expensive.
expensive.
Yeah.
So to break a piece of glass is
Mm.
like that would be like crashing the car practically.
Oh,
So,
fair enough.
there is sort of a like aspect here of, oh, that was the legal question. That was what I was going to say is that the father, yeah, the father beats Aslak, his like 10-year-old kid. And they say he has to keep spending time going into the city and like going somewhere in the book. And I assumed the implication was like, oh, there's some legal thing going on. And then it just, it's never mentioned again. So I thought, oh, maybe that's what was going on. But then, yeah, the dude who stabs Thorbjorn, nothing seems to happen to him. So I was like, oh, maybe there is no court system. Maybe this is sort of like a Wild West. Or I was unsure. Or maybe it's like you have to press charges and Thorbjorn doesn't press charges and that makes him a good person, whereas Aslak presses charges against the man who beats him. And therefore he's a bad person. I wasn't completely
Yeah.
clear on that aspect of it, but that's my lack of knowledge of Norwegian history and court systems.
Yeah, you get the sense of a sort of like a Christian anarchist society.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, where it's very clear, and Bjornson mentions this and underlines it and highlights it and circles it, that the church is a very prominent and important part of these people's lives. It is the thing in every background, he describes it, but there doesn't
Yeah, and they
seem
hear the
to.
bells and they see the shoes. That's a nice kind of touch, actually. I kind
Yeah,
of liked that touch of it. It sort of it does have an anchor. It sort of has this root that holds it. And the fact that you're right, he kind of hammers home the point. He could be a little more subtle, but it's an interesting sort of idea. There's the church and everything sort of that's good set sort of circles it like a drain. All the good things sort of end up there. And I think that's a nice image. It's a nice sort of idea.
yeah, I think it is too. It's interesting because Bjornson himself was pretty critical of organized religion. He kind of famously went at it, and you don't get the sense of that at all in this
No.
book. The only thing maybe you could say is he's deeply condescending towards the peasants. In certain chapters, he will talk about the peasants in a way that there's sort of, it almost feels like an anthropologist speaking about them. He's not angry at them or dismissing of them. He's just, they,
It's like Margaret Mead.
yeah,
There's
that's what it
this.
feels like. It feels like he's looking down on them from up high. And so maybe his ability to accept the church is, well, that's good for these people. It's good
Yeah,
for
that's what I was just gonna
this
say. It's
society.
yeah, there's this idea of, well, they need it because look what happens if they don't have it.
Yeah.
But
But it's still oddly moralizing the book. I mean, there's good and evil, and there's pretty simple morality of you have to keep your temper and do the
and
right thing,
and turn
turn
the
the
other
other cheek.
cheek.
That makes any kind of condescension also a little odd. Are we supposed to see this as a universal ethic that is applicable to everyone, or is this just a quaint little look at this non-urban, non-cosmopolitan space?
I think it has the aspect of like this is the way everyone should be. Isn't it a shame? There's no suggestion of like because they never go to the city. It to compare it to I think we're gonna do at some point we're gonna do New Thompson. New Thompson, who's also Norwegian, it has they go to the city and nothing good comes from the city. This doesn't have the contrasting element, but there's certainly an implication here that wouldn't it be great if we all could live this way? And we had access to this sort of primitive lifestyle. It's certainly an idealization.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing of why it won, because we know
Yeah.
that this era of Nobel Prizes, they have this conservative look towards the past, romanticizing of the kind of simple 19th century world, which is an ideal of sorts. And yeah, I think you're right. This is an idealization of these people.
I will say, by the way, one thing just about Sonovi. Is that what we're going with?
Yeah, Sanovi,
Sonovi.
the lady.
Yes, Sonovi, the name. The name of the book. I will go with this. I will say that this book, Sonovi, that it's better than Unglad Gut, at least the glad boy, the happy boy, because at least there's like some sort of conflict. Like in the happy boy, the only conflict is like he's kind of poor, and so and so they just assume he's lazy. So he has to like prove he's not lazy by going to college. And then he comes back and he helps the town with his new agricultural knowledge.
Mhm.
And
And then
then
gets the girl.
and then he gets the girl. Like there's no this the only thing it reminded me of, I remember reading a few years ago that there was something that was saying, and I don't know if this is true or not. I just this is one of these things where it said it, and I have a feeling it's not true. I think this is just people are always this is the intergenerational thing. I find the millennials versus Gen Zs and boomers to be kind of an annoying concept, but it was talking about how Gen Z likes movies and books that don't have conflict. They want to see characters sort of realizing their potential, but they don't necessarily want to see conflict in a stories. Which I'm like, well, the Marvel universe kind of ruins that conceit because I think there's
Mm.
a lot of conflict. But fine, maybe they
Mm.
need cartoonish conflict, not personal conflict. But the Unglad Gut has that feeling where it's like this is just like a character who's like society hasn't accepted me. I'm going to prove myself, and then I'm going to be a happy boy. Like there's no sense that there's anything to really be overcome per se. But at least in this one, there is, okay, he has a character flaw and he has to struggle to change that. And he undergoes some sort of, cataclysmic event, some sort of dark night of the soul when he's stabbed, and that causes him to change his ways. So it's sort of like, yeah, there's a thing that happens at least, and the character undergoes some change other than just being like, well, I got educated and learned how to, you know,
Farm.
how to properly farm, and therefore now I get the girl. It's like I know how to lay fields fallow and irrigate, and therefore I'm worthy of the girl. Sort of like that. That was the happy boy was like, but what is the point of this?
Yeah, I got the sense that the same kind of same sort of condescension. This book is more condescending than Unglatt Gut, right? I mean, this book at least at parts of this book he comes out and goes, the peasants act like this, and this is how they are. He doesn't really do that. There is just sort of a sense of well, I come from these people, so I can write about them in Unglatt Gut. But you're right, and the scene where he gets stabbed, where Thorbjorn gets stabbed, is actually fairly well written.
Yeah, it's not to say it's badly written. I should say that. It has like not quite a Hemingway feel, but it has this sort of it's not overwritten. That you could overwrite and sentimentalize.
Mhm.
this a lot, I think. And but it doesn't have that. It doesn't sort of have that Thackeray or even Dickensian sort of just exuberant writing. It's very simple, it's very plain, but effective. It's a plain it's an effective sense of simplicity. I don't think that's a bad thing. It reminds me what I was going to say at the beginning. I said it reminds me a little bit of, although it was Timothy Shea Arthur. Timothy Shea Arthur. He's a little more purple prosy. Timothy Shea Arthur is he wrote one of by some measures this I think I've mentioned in this podcast before the
Oh,
second
yeah, I know what you're talking
most
about.
popular book of the 19th century in America. And he's sort of this heavily moralizing, sort of purple prose-ish, that he wants you to understand the evils of drink. This doesn't quite have that, but it sort of has this just simplicity of verse and word and just sort of moral point that it's not great. I don't think it's a great thing to have, but he's not a bad writer. He's not Edward Buller Lytton, the sort of, it was a dark and stormy night. He's not that kind of writer. So he's reserved, he's restrained enough.
And he knows how to set a moment as well. I like the stabbing scene because you don't realize it happens at first. The stabbing. I don't think he even says in the
I don't think
scene
he says it, no, yeah.
where Thorbjorn is stabbed that he was stabbed. It just describes the sensation he feels and whatnot. And I thought, no, that's a
That's a nice
decent way
technique.
of doing that. And the Aslak character also never exactly admits that he burned it down.
No.
The burned down the barn. He just tells
That's
it
a
through a
very good section too.
story.
Yeah, that's a very good section.
That's very good. And they leave it. They
Yeah.
don't pick up, so it doesn't
He
actually
just he
feel
just tells the
morally.
story. He just tells the story as if it happened to another person, and everybody at the table knows that he did it because it's very clear. And they sort of are like, we're just not going to react to this because this is kind of terrifying. This guy just told us he murdered someone and burned a house down, and we're not going to respond to it. And that's good. That's a good section. That's a well written little piece. That actually would be a by itself would be a good short story. You could do that pretty effectively. Um, so that was good. I liked that. So if he,
That would be a
but
really good short story, actually.
yeah, I mean that's a very Chekhovian short story, right? I mean that's very like Chekhov, having a character sort of show up, tell a story that happened to somebody else, but you know it happened to them, and then sort of just walk out of the room. Like it has that feel to it of a Chekhov short story, but but it's sort of disconnected from the rest, other than to inform. That's why I say Aslak is the best character in this whole thing, and he sort of barely gets any attention, and that's his one of his better sections actually. So. But it just kind of he tells that story and then just drops it and walks away. And that I get you can argue it's connected to the narrative in some way.
I don't know what the moral, and I think maybe I'm overemphasizing this idea of it's a moral story. There's just a very obvious morality that's in the
Yeah,
background of this, right? And you got to control your temper type thing is just an easy paradigm to work from. It's just an interesting part of this world, I think. And it's the one time he does authentic world building. Like in this world, it produces people like this.
yeah.
And and it's really cool because other than that, it's just sort of this is the ideal place. This is Norway. This is its people. This is its land. But it's also, yeah, it also produces people like this who are mistreated and then become, lunatic murderers because of it and vagabonds. And that's the probably the most ironic or difficult thing in the book. It's the point where it's the thing the book doesn't resolve. The book has no interest
No, the
in
book has
resolving
no
it.
interest in resolving
It
it,
just leaves that open wound, and it's works well.
but I don't know if it's meant to be like an open wound per se, or meant to be like this is an infection. Like that's more what it, I mean, I guess there is this sort of open wound aspect, but it's sort of like this is an infection that has to be purged.
But they never
And
do anything.
no, but the individual does. The individual has to reject that way of life. Thorbjorn has to reject it. He can't accept that as his way of life because if he keeps living the way he's going, he's either going to end up dead or like Aslak. And so he has to reject it. He can't let that influence. I mean, I think that's what's going on here, that it takes that sort of strength of mind, and there's this element. I guess there's this element because Aslak is even the reason he goes when he gets stabbed. The reason he gets stabbed is because he was taking his cart loaded with goods, and Aslak jumps out at the cart and scares the horse and causes the horse to sort of turn, and then he breaks an axle, and then he has to go to a local wedding to ask some people to help him, and they're trying to get him to drink and party, and he won't because he's trying to be good, and so he's going back to his cart, and then the
Canute, right?
Knut, whatever his
Mhm.
name is, he gets mad at he sort of picks a fight with him and then stabs him. So there's this element of sort of the evil is sort of random, like it literally just jumps out at you at a road. So that's always going to be there. There's sort of this element of like there's always just kind of evil, and there's just sort of this infection waiting to happen, but you need to control your reaction to it, and then everything will be fine. Like that seems to be sort of the idea here, that there are bad elements, but if you reject them or eject them, then you'll be okay,
Society will go on.
and everything will go on, and
Yeah.
those people just kind of have to be purged, it almost
Mhm.
feels like.
I maybe that's what they're going for. I just it doesn't seem. I know that Thorbjorn is influenced by him early in the book, but it doesn't seem like his problems are necessarily the problems that Aslak has. I mean, it seems like Thorbjorn is just he's too hot-headed. Aslak is, you know, psycho. He's a
Well, but I mean, the argument here is that if Thorbjorn just keeps fighting and
he'll
just
become that kind
he'll
of
he'll become this angry, drunk, violent figure,
yeah.
and it's only the love of a woman and the love of God that saves
That
him.
keeps him on the yeah. Maybe I just don't find it. I think that may be a fault in the novel that I don't think that's particularly convincing. Like I don't think it's convincing that Thorbjorn would ever come to be an Aslak.
No, and I don't. Maybe that's not what it's suggesting. Again, I'm not sure. I'm saying that he would become this Aslak
Hmm.
character. He's not jolly enough. Aslak is sort of a
Yeah,
trickster in a local street. He's got this
mm,
kind of Puck feel to
yeah,
him.
he's a Loki. He's a Loki.
Yeah, he's a Loki. He's sort of this. Yeah, I guess that Puck is probably a bad example. He's a Loki. He's a chaos character.
Hmm.
Thornbjorn isn't that, but Thornbjorn is susceptible to it. When the chaos gets introduced
He's
to him, when
susceptible
these
to
sort
the
of
trickery. That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, and so he's and eventually it's going to kill him. I think is sort of the idea, maybe more than anything else. Either he's just going to become a violent, angry jerk, and eventually it's going to get him killed. I think maybe that's more what I mean by
By what
that.
you have to reject. Yeah.
Yeah, by what you have to reject. Not that you will become the thing you reject, but you have to sort of you have to sort of reject it or eject it. It can't be part of society. There's no suggestion here that Aslak is sort of okay, and he's just sort of he's like the local tramp. It's sort of like, nah, this is a force of chaos and evil, and he causes damage to relationships and people wherever he goes. So I guess he's left unresolved, but he's left unresolved in the same way that a tornado is left unresolved in
Mhm.
The Wizard of Oz. There's no sense that we need to now go and solve the tornado. Like it's just like that's the thing that causes it, initiates all the problems, but you can't control that part of it. You have to do the rest of this. You have to control yourself and everything else. So I guess that's why I would say you're right. They do leave him unresolved, but there's no sense that, like, what would they do with him?
Yeah. Yeah. You can't. Yeah. There's nothing they can do with him, and it's nice that they drop that Bjornson drops it there. It's nice that they
Yeah,
drop him with the
it's a
story.
nice
You get an
touch.
explanation as to why he is the way he is, and we're off. That's over with. I will say, um, Sinove, our title character, I can't remember a single
Single thing
detail
detail
about
about her.
her. She's apparently very horrified when people fight in church. Um, uh,
Her parents are very religious,
she
and
likes Ingrid.
she's friends with Thorbjorn's sister.
Ingrid,
She
yeah.
says she's never danced, but apparently has.
Yeah, she knows the waltz.
She knows how to waltz.
hmm Um,
Yeah, we're running out, running out of details for this lady.
yeah. Is she blonde?
I don't know if it says that or whether that's just the movie.
Yeah, she's blonde in the movie. The book doesn't describe her hair color, so that's
I mean, it might, but it's
yeah.
that forgettable that it's. She
Yeah,
likes
this is
flowers. She likes flowers.
yeah. She's not a really fleshed out character, and she gets a lot of time on her own. We spend time with her
Yeah,
and Ingrid together. Usually Ingrid's there, who's also really not
not very
much.
interesting either. I
No,
mean, none of these characters are really that interesting. I mean, what's Thorbjorn other than he's pugilistic?
that's
Like
yeah, that's about
that's
it.
about it. Like, do you
hmm
know anything else about the guy?
Uh, no, I don't.
No. I
No.
mean, they're all these sort of just boxy kind of
Yeah.
mannequins with a couple traits tacked onto them. Other than Aslak. Aslak's got some real characters, some real backstory, some real contradictory qualities, some conflict. Like there's something real going on there. But it's just Thorbjorn is just sort of like he likes to fight,
Doesn't want
therefore
to fight.
doesn't want to fight, has to fight, loves the girl.
Yeah.
Like that's it. I mean, there's nothing else. The dad has a little, yeah, the dad has like a little bit of interest. That's another great section I actually really liked is when the dad, after Thorbjorn is stabbed, the dad leaves and they don't know where the dad is, and it turns out the dad went back to the wedding and confronted the guy that stabbed him. That's a great little passage. Again, a great little story. Like that's a good like that's a Chekhov short story right there. That's a good story. You can do some really interesting things there. He doesn't, but you could do some really interesting things with that. So the dad gets a little bit of interest there. Like he's got some kind of qualities that are interesting. But other than that, just very little.
Yeah, it's kind of a blank. Um, do you want to move on to the movie?
Yeah.
Speaking of blank.
Think speaking of blank, I have to say my favorite thing that this so basically this is how I would summarize the movie. It's essentially just the book because I think they put the entire book on the title cards. But I don't speak Norwegian, so I'm not positive. But I'm pretty sure most of the book is probably on the title cards, given the number of title cards there are and how much just text is jammed onto those
Yeah.
title cards.
Uh,
It's basically like you're just reading the book with like with moving with moving pictures with it. You just that's essentially what it is.
you
And though I
know,
do like the innovation where every single time a new character is introduced, they put the actor on the title card when they when they are introduced.
that was a
It's a
thing.
great little touch. Never seen a movie
Yeah.
do that.
I've seen it a few times in silent movies where they introduce the actor with the character. I think they do. I think we'll see it again in the Phantom Carriage when we do Lagerlof. But this is yeah, it's a loyal, it's almost slavishly loyal movie. Um, it comes from. It's actually interesting. This period. This is like the golden era of Norwegian. Excuse me, of Swedish films. It's actually a Swedish movie. It was made by a Swedish company with Swedish actors, Swedish director. I think it's in Swedish even. I'm not entirely sure about that last one. But yeah, apparently the Swedish the big era of Swedish film was 1917 to 1924, and that's when you had a lot of people like Greta Garbo come up or Victor Sjöström, who both of them went off to Hollywood together and were wildly successful. This is when Lagerlof's work became really popular to film. It filmed really well, and a lot of her work was about rural peasants. And so I think this movie is sort of downstream of that. They went, "Oh, this sells. Let's do
Let's
it."
make this, yeah.
Yeah, and it's filmed in Sweden and in Norway's Gudbrand Valley, which I will say the one thing I did like about this movie is they find really good outdoor landscapes to film in front of.
Yeah.
A lot of great valley shots of Norway.
I liked there's a couple good, there was literally a couple moments where I'm like, "Oh, they do know how to like do an interesting shot because so much of it is literally like put the camera down, have the character talk for in silence for 25 or 30 seconds and then stick a big title card with all the text that they just said. Right? I mean, there's so much of it is that. And you're just going, for the love of God, like, can't you learn how to make these movies? This is not how you do it. And that just drove me crazy. But there's a couple good shots, and particularly, interestingly, in the church, they have that it's a really good shot. Like that's a beautiful shot when the as children, Sylvania and Thornbjorn meet and they're in church and they're sitting on opposite pews. And they show them kind of sitting there, and it's kind of just the standard like front shot right on their faces as they're sitting there being like rattling away for a while. And but then they get this really cool shot down the aisle of the church with the priest, or I don't know if it's a priest or minister, whatever it
they
is.
call it a priest.
They call it a priest.
Hmm.
Um, and he's sort of up on the altar, sort of standing there up on the dais there, and the two children looking at each other across the aisle. That is chef's kiss good. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful shot. The way the lighting works, and they kind of set up the darkness in the background, and you sort of have like kind of a little bit. It's not, this isn't Citizen Kane, so it's not deep focus like multiple stuff, but this is cool. That's a good image. And that was the moment where I went, something good. Like somebody knew how to take a camera and not just stick it in the actor's face and have them talk. That was cool. But there's very few moments like that, but there's a few really good ones, right?
Yeah, there's the Mayday dance. There's a Mayday dance at one point where you have a lot of different things are intercut together. I think they intercut that with the father back in the home, and so he's like wondering what happened to his son.
Yeah, there's a couple things like
There's
that.
things
Yeah.
like that show a little bit of life there.
There's a little bit of some interesting shots of Aslak. I think there's some interesting shots of him sort of because they added this is the only thing I think they add that they change is they have Aslak give the knife to Knud.
Oh, yes. Hmm.
That's not in the book. So they give, and again, this is where I kind of really like Aslak. They give him and they give him even more agency here. In the book, he just causes the horse to break the axle and then goes and drunkenly tells a story at the wedding, and that's sort of all he does. Here, he actively, he sort of has this like, again, I like that moment. It reminds me of like Al Pacino on the subway in Devil's Advocate. There's just this sort of when he they meets the Spanish guy that's yelling at him, and he basically tells him to go
Oh,
home and
yeah.
kill his wife.
Hmm.
There's almost that kind of aspect that there's this sort of little demonic aspect of this guy, like sort of being the devil on the shoulder, putting the knife in his hand and telling him to go stab him. They give those are some nice moments, and then but there's a moment when Aslak's sort of like writhing in sort of agony, sort of one of those like. Not what have I done moments, but like evil is its own punishment kind of moments. But they kind of give a few of those. So he gets some interesting shots, but for the most part, there's very little that's sort of being done with the camera.
Yeah, it's point and click.
Yeah,
It's point and click. It's good exteriors. I think the interiors were shot in Sweden, but
they're nice log cabiny.
they're
They-
very.
they-
The set looks good indoors. The
I
Norway looks
like when
beautiful.
they have the baby. I like they have the they have the baby crib, which again is top. It's probably accurate. They just have the baby crib, and it's just tied to ropes to the ceiling, and it's just kind of floating in the middle of the room, which I enjoyed. Like having now a 2 month old daughter, it just kind of cracks me up. Just this idea of hanging your crib from the ceiling and just being like, this is a good spot for them, right here in the middle of the room, floating off the floor. I don't know. I enjoyed that, but there's some nice
Hmm.
period things.
Stuff, I guess. Yeah, I was kind of interested. I mean, this is an interesting period in European film history because it's the point where Sweden sort of gets swallowed up by Germany. Like German film takes over as the dominant force. But for a while, this is the period when Sweden was the best filmmaking country in Europe. And then UFA replaces that after the war. So it's a kind of interesting period to look at in terms of Swedish film because you see just a bunch of people go to basically they lose them all to Hollywood. And Hollywood just says, oh, we'll just pay you a lot more and takes them all out of there. So it's kind of fun, I guess, to see that and be like, oh, this is an interesting period in film history.
I feel like they probably made a better movie. I would love to see like the best Swedish movie ever made.
Well, of that period, we probably will with the Phantom
With yes,
Carriage.
with Phantom
The
Carriage.
Phantom Carriage is excellent, and it's from this period.
I haven't seen the movie and I haven't read the book, but I do like Selma Lagerlof, so I'm intrigued to read this one because I've read her before and I do like her. So I think that one I look forward to. So this one is fine. It's just as far as silent movie goes, it's pretty bland. It's got some things of technical brilliance and it's got some, again, I actually think the guy who plays Aslak is actually a fairly good actor for a silent movie. He's pretty good. Like he kind of he's the only one who shows any range
Mhm.
because he has to play sort of as this sort of like
Yeah,
impish kind of guy at the beginning, just
the
throwing
rest of them are
snowballs and
incredibly dull.
yeah, they don't do anything.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, you don't see them even really respond. It seems, and
No, I mean even when he's angry, he just sort of gets like, "Urgh," he gets like kind of this kind of wrinkly brow face, but there's nothing. He doesn't do anything. And the dad, when he's going to confront his son's murderer, is just kind of like grumpy and pushes him. Like there's very little. The actors are pretty bland, even for silent film, where it's a little difficult, but you can get very good silent film performances. Aslak gives that actor gives a good performance. He actually looks pretty legit. When you see him later after the dad has kind of kicked him out for breaking the windows, and you see him sort of living in a ditch, he does just looks like kind of a crazed hobo. Like he actually has to do some acting that actor, that character, and it I think it's good. I think it will remain the thing that will stick with me. If anything from either of these books sticks with me, it will be that character. That character and that story. His story about burning down the house in response to his mother's being insulted is a great. It's just like that'll stay with you. I
yeah,
think that character and that story will stay.
yeah.
Very little of the rest will.
Ina Rode was the name of the actor.
I wonder if he
So
did anything.
that's he died at 34. So not
Oh, that's sad.
yeah. Um, he this was one of a few movies he did.
Oh darn.
Um,
I actually kind of
yeah.
liked him. I was hoping he might be in like Phantom Carriage or something later we
hmm
might see, but no, that's a shame. He's good.
Yeah. He's, I
He
think, a big theater guy.
ah,
Looks like he had a very most of his career seems like it was in the theater.
that's a shame. Yeah.
No.
But he was good. I had respect for that guy. No one else.
All right, so we're coming to the end here, and we should then ask, is this a book we should continue to read today? Should we canonize this in our own private canon and enforce it upon school children from here on out?
We should not.
We should
We should
not.
not. This is a pretty weak early entry in Nobel history.
Yeah, it's a period piece. This is the thing. I mean, that's the opposite of the canon would be a period piece,
Yes.
something that isn't going to survive out of its period. And it's odd. I don't think it wants to. It seems like a book of a guy
No.
who's trying to capture a time period he likes.
But you can do that in a way that's more interesting than this.
Yeah, and you can make it universal,
Yeah.
right? That's what you need to do. Make it universal, something like universal. But I don't think he even wants to do that. I
No,
think
I
he
don't think he
wants
wants
to
to. I don't think he
look
wants to.
in at this time period and say, this is what these people were like. That I think that's what he wants to do with these peasant novels. I
Yeah.
think he was intrigued by this society. I think it might be part of his political project, which is this is a nation, these are a people, they should be their own people. Here they are. And that may be part of a problem too, if you have this kind of agenda. And I don't know if these books are necessarily that agenda. I wouldn't doubt it though. He was very, very polemical in his life. But that's part of the problem. If you have this kind of agenda, then that's
You're
going
gonna
to,
tie it unless you're really good. You
yeah,
have to be you have to be beyond exceptional to transcend that.
yeah. Maybe Ibsen was able to do that in a lot of ways. But even Ibsen
I don't
is
know,
an
did Ibsen have I mean Ibsen does have specific social political points, and yeah, Ibsen certainly does.
Yeah, he does a lot, right? With
He
The
does quite
Wild
a bit.
Duck or The Pillars of Society or Doll's House. But Ibsen is somehow able to make it work. Maybe it's because the actual plays we find most intriguing may not be Doll's House, but like Master Builder
Master Builder and Hedda
or
Gabler are better.
Ghosts. Yeah. I think
Even
those
Ghost, I
plays
mean,
are,
I like Ghost, but Ghost is a little tied to its time. I mean, it's a little
hmm,
hard to kind of the syphilis thing
yeah,
just doesn't doesn't
doesn't
work as well.
really
Doesn't really work
spark
as
our
well.
imagination.
Although
But Master,
I saw a really good production of Ghost in London, maybe well, now we're looking at it wasn't 15 years ago, 10 years ago or so, a
hmm,
little more than 10 years ago. But Hedda Gabler and Master Builder are his ones that translate the best. Doll's House kind of translates, but more as a like people like to applaud
hmm,
um, Nora. I think they're missing the point of that one. Maybe if
yeah,
we ever do, I like Doll's House, but I think a lot of people miss why it was so good.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think people do too. It's odd though. They do, but I think because it has survived, um, I don't know, maybe enough people kind of see what he's trying to do with Doll's House that keeps it afloat.
I have a whole theory. I think Doll's House stands on its own. I think it's perfectly fine on its own. And I don't think it's one of these plays where it's like people, everyone just kind of romanticizes it. I think it is a good play. I think that there's a specific genre level subterfuge that he's doing that isn't obvious to a modern audience because we're not familiar with the genre he's sort of working in.
Mm.
Maybe we'll do that when we do our They Should Have Won the Nobel Prize one. We should
Yeah,
do it. We should do an Ibsen one.
anti-prize
Our
season.
anti-prize
Yeah.
people who should have won. But yeah, it's ultimately this guy just doesn't universalize. He's not that. He's a decent writer. He clearly's got some sparks of really good stuff.
Mhm.
But it's just nothing. He never. I don't think he ever really wanted to. To your point, I don't think he was trying to sort of be a check off. I don't think he was trying to make these sort of universal things.
Mhm.
So it's fine, but no,
Yeah.
this is not. No one in America. Maybe in Norway would be reading this. Maybe he has enough standing in Norway. No one in America or most of the world would ever be reading Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson if he hadn't won the Nobel Prize. It's the only reason I'm reading him. It's the only reason you're reading him. We would never be spending time with this guy
The
otherwise.
only thing people seem to read of him is he had a long correspondence with Ibsen, and people look into that to learn more about Ibsen.
Ibsen, yeah.
So I think that's why. And his play that I read of his, The Bankrupt, is
Good
similar
Lord, you read a lot of
to
Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson.
yeah. I got the Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson Super Pack, it was
You
called.
really found where?
I perfectly legally downloaded it from
Oh, okay,
a
okay.
Russian site. That was
Oh yeah, yeah.
perfectly,
No, I thought it was like
and I
an
paid
Amazon
a
thing. I'm like, I got Unglad Gut, and it
mm,
was like absurdly expensive on Amazon, and I was like, oh, I'm not doing
oh
this anymore. And it was like a
no.
$16 book. I'm like, oh, I'm never doing this again. I thought it was going to be some giant volume. I'm like, it's like 100 pages of just like copy pasted, like someone Xeroxed it and stuck it together. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this again. And then, but it's fine. He's a decent writer. But no one's going to read him. No one
Yeah.
is.
I guess I'm happy he won the Nobel Prize because it's fun to find his little historical things.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in the peasants of Norway and what their life must have been like, I got a feeling this book is inaccurate in those regards, but
That's,
you,
yeah, yeah.
you'll get a sense of what people probably thought.
They thought that life was like.
Yeah.
It says
Um,
more about the people who wrote it than it does about the subject. That's my favorite
that's a good
thing
way
to
to
describe books nowadays.
put it. Yeah. If you enjoyed Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson's work, try and find the film Ein Glad Gut. We couldn't find it. There's also two other versions of Sionve Solbakken, one from the 1950s, which I think had Harriet Anderson, the woman who worked with Ingmar Bergman on a bunch of films, including Persona. So she is in a version of it called The Fairy of Solbakken from the 1950s. If you know where these things are, legally or suspiciously, please let us know
Because we can't
because
find
we can't
anything.
find anything. Yeah, the apparently the 1932 Unglan Gut was to celebrate the 100th year of Bjornson's birth. So if you can find that, give us a shout out on social.
You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia, Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapt It, wherever fine podcasts are found.
Join us next time when we discuss The Great Galeotto by Jose Echegaray. See you then.
Wow, Talking Studios.
Next week, we'll be discussing the 1904 prize winner Jose Echegaray y Ezeguare. Pat, who would you have direct the play The Great Galeotto if you could pick anyone?
I would get Rob Reiner to do this one, right? You don't like that pick?
That's the I'll have what she's having guy?
I was going more with it's the Princess Bride guy.
Oh, okay.
You get the Princess Bride.
Yes.
I think this would be like a good. This gotta have. It's got this like. It's got the sword fighting. It's got It's got romance. Like I think you could have a Rob Reiner romantic romp.
Yeah.
With,
can Ernest be played by Wallace Shawn?
Yeah, sure. I think we could have a lot of fun with this one.
Oh.
What about you?
I had the honest answer this time. I had James Gray.
I was honest. That was an honest answer. I would have Rob Reiner directed. Anyway, fine. No, you go with yours. You go with yours.
Yeah.
I interrupted. I apologize.
No, that's good. I just keep thinking of Rob Reiner he did Harry Met Sally, right? When Harry Met Sally?
Did he?
I think he did. Yeah, because I think of him as kind of like romantic comedy, a little.
The only thing I could name that he's done is Princess Bride.
Princess
He
Bride.
certainly
Yeah.
could have. I've never seen Harry Met Sally. I've only seen. Anyway,
Mm.
I interrupted your answer.
No,
I
no,
apologize.
not at
So
all.
we should go. Yeah.
Yeah, James Gray, who is he's a very earnest director. He does Two Lovers. He started with Little Odessa, which is a movie so bad I didn't finish it, even though it has like this very dramatic ending. I'm not the biggest James Gray fan, but he makes these movies that are very, very, I would just say earnest. They're not ironic at all. They're just sort of direct and to the point. And he has a movie called The Immigrant with Marion Cotillard, which is, it feels like this film, not in terms of content, but just in terms of everyone is trying to be honest all the time, that type of thing. And so I thought, he would probably be the guy I would pick for this.
It's probably better. I was just thinking something that would improve the movie, not necessarily something that would mimic the movie.
That's true. I guess I would rather see the Rob Reiner version of this, though, honestly. I would much rather enjoy that.